have I named anything. Spelljammer is just fucking Spelljammer. It
Celestial
is what it is.
Celestial Complex.
Best Star Wars edition. There we go.
Please send
Star
link.
Wars. If you need a more distinctive quality.
Star Wars Girl Bosses of the Old Republic.
Plus one guy.
Yeah, it's turned into another Goth Girls. It's Goth Girls plus one. Now it's Star Wars.
Girl boss plus one.
Girl Boss plus one. Just making things complicated, Joe.
I am trying to represent the minority that is straight white men. So
But you're not even white. He's green.
hey, that I don't have a bit for this. Never mind. Don't pay attention to me.
Oh. Yeah, Jedi Luigi says he feels represented now too. Oh. Okay. So, we have so we're gonna settle back into this. It's been a minute.
A couple.
So, I believe where we left off last time, you guys had finished off talking to the head nurse and had been very quickly escorted back out of essentially the ER trauma wing, back into one of the primary hallways of the ship.
When you say very quickly escorted, do you mean kicked out?
Kind of. They did not want them just hanging around in the center of the ER where doctors and nurses are rushing around, because this ship, this is something else that was not told to you. This ship is over a planet at war right now. So there is actively shuttles going to and from the ship with people injured. So the hospital is packed. And that's part of the reason why there's been some slip-ups as far as security and such, is that this was essentially the very first medical frigate put into service at the start of the war. And it has very rarely ever had a break for the past almost 2 decades. It only has stopped being in service when there were major repairs that need to happen and it had to dock, and usually those repairs were rushed and it was sent back off. Because medical frigates are very specialized, very high-value targets, and thus end up being few and far between. So there is a lot of stuff going on, and that was one of the kind of firm issues that they ran into, is they will not stop the shuttles back and forth because they cannot stop. Otherwise, you are stranding a lot of soldiers on the ground who need medical attention. And so there are shuttles essentially in a line going back and forth to this frigate.
Oh boy.
But you all guys got kind of escorted back out to one of the main hallways where you're kind of out of the way of the kind of primary trauma area. And Thesme had very thoroughly confused and panicked a young recruit, a young private, and he just kind of like gets all of you away and then kind of shuffles over to the other private stationed at this door, and they just kind of like whisper back and forth to each other very quietly as you guys move down the hallway. And as you're turning down the hallway, we'll say that Kane is coming to meet you all, escorted by a couple of security personnel. Had something to do on the ship. I kept him for
Paperwork.
Yeah, kept him for a minute. But when he made it clear, when they saw him coming off of the ambassador's ship, and made it clear that he was part of Iffy's entourage, he was allowed through to come meet with all of you. So that is where we are going to start.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, would at this point Kane have heard about the death?
They could have been sending you messages and stuff, so you could know some of the basics of it, yeah.
Okay. Kane, like Joe, is going to take notes.
Aw, Kane. If you like, I can send you my notes from the last couple sessions. They're a little stream of consciousness. But
That's fine. So, okay, where are we at? Specifically. Suspect list? Anything?
Suspects. I mean, we got a couple. We ain't talked to the chef fella yet. We ain't talked to this. They said there's a nurse that's a Mom Cal. I mean,
It was Dr.
somebody-
Phobos.
We don't
Slow
have
down.
proof of
Slow
that.
down. So, okay.
What's making you say that?
I mean, everything.
No, we're not. Rewind. We need. I'd like to go over the actual evidence. Like, where was Dr. Phobos when the actual killing took place? Do we have a time for the killing?
How would I know?
We Kane. I forgot.
It was
I
a-
might have forgotten to ask.
It was an hour before we got here,
Can I?
approximately.
Am I permitted to go see the body and like do a little bit of my own investigation work? Like, who found the body?
I think we did note that down.
Mm-hmm.
Was it just like a cargo worker or something?
Yeah,
It was-
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
someone taking stock, right?
it was
Yeah.
essentially kind of like a janitor type person that was coming in to kind of take stock of what was in the cargo bay and move things around the ship as they were supposed to. And they found the body when they came in to essentially double check a crate and get the crate into the ship properly.
Okay. So,
If you would like to return to the body, you can. It is still there.
We also have passes too. So
also what? Glasses?
passes. We had to
Passes.
get like passes so we can kind of traverse freely. For the most part.
Gotcha. Okay. So, just humor me for a second. Is there anyone who can be placed at that location at the time of death? Holy shit, this is a lot of notes.
I took a fair few of them.
Apparently, no, the cameras were out.
Killed
We
an hour
could,
before we got there.
we could check the cameras again, but in terms of specifics off the top of our head, not quite. We do know his assistant came by to pick up all his stuff and whatnot, but side details, yeah. I got a lot on my mind.
So let's
forgot to ask.
So who are the actual suspects here? Who is this? Xander?
Xander's a dead
Or
guy.
not Xander. Dr. Phobos.
Yes, there's Dr. Phobos. There's Dr. Phobos might be the only named person who has seemed sus so far. The captain seemed like a pretty solid dude. I don't know.
Cleaning crew found the body.
The nurse we talked to seemed all right too. I think the only one who did lie about something was Phobos.
There was, but there's also the chef, who we haven't
Yeah.
talked to. But the wound seemed to be from a regular knife, which the chef
Yeah.
may have.
So it's chef. I think we should also talk to the assistant and the prisoner.
Yeah.
And Sergeant Kelly orders supplies, excuse me.
Yes.
Lieutenant Seed is in the brig, so it's likely that we can rule them out. Head nurse Sharia?
I wasn't sure how to spell it.
Sharia.
Sharia. Nurse Sharia.
She was the one that would be getting supplies for the hospital side of things, essentially. Because we found a list of prices for organs, essentially, near the
Oh,
body.
that is interesting. Sergeant Kelly orders supplies.
There are 3 people who order supplies for the different sections of the ship.
Yeah.
So, and Miss Cho, who is ordering medical supplies, specifically medical.
I will also say there's been a couple of mix-ups somewhere, so I may have to stop
Yeah.
and do things, because the last time we played, I had left my notes for all of this, which you need in a murder mystery, at work.
Incredible.
We got through it. We got most of it.
What is the chef's name? Do we know the chef's name?
His name's Chef.
I don't believe you. Let's go talk to the chef.
All right, let's go talk to the chef. Let's go fucking talk to the chef.
He was next on the list.
That was a name that was said. I do know that.
Oh,
You may not have
did
written
write
that
it
one
down.
down.
I'm sorry.
Casa T also on here.
You all head towards the galley to go talk to the chef, and I will, for the sake of, and Amy, even if you're not RPing, if you want to just throw out thoughts and ideas, I feel like help is needed.
More brain cells are welcome.
Because we've got like 2 to go around, it feels like.
Here's the thing that have you forgotten that both Joe and I are here?
There is one
true. Only one of us can have it at any given point in time.
That's the thing.
Now Amy's here. Now I can't have it.
I will also point all of you back to, if you look at the very top of your journal in Roll20, there should be a rooms on the Paramount, so that you know, like, those are the only places you can physically go. So
Wait. The only places we can physically go are where?
bridge, briefing room, brig. There should be a handout titled rooms on the Paramount.
Oh.
If I am to be trying to throw in my like quarter of like half of the brain cell, can I get like a rundown of how many people there are and names and positions? Real quick, like copy pasted.
Okay. So
I'm writing that down right now.
yeah. So
Okay.
let's go, because it's been a while, and we're going to try and collect all of the brain cells here. So we'll go to the chef next, but let's go through the list so that we have all of the names and everybody knows what they are, as a refresher. Okay.
Sounds grand.
So the captain of the ship, I believe I gave you the name Aurelius.
Yeah.
And I can
Ray.
type some of these out for you.
Yes.
Please, I can't spell.
Captain Aurelius.
Thank you.
I do admit I forget the name of the second in command, Lieutenant guy, which you met first.
Not Lieutenant Seed.
No, Lieutenant Seed is in the
Kelly, right?
Kelly,
Correct.
yes.
Lieutenant Kelly? Sergeant Kelly?
Sergeant Kelly.
Sergeant Kelly. So she's the first mate.
He,
so to speak.
yes.
He.
He is higher up in the military command. And so he was the one that was in charge of kind of the security and like watched y'all with the body and took you to the bridge and all that type of stuff. While on the bridge, you heard about Lieutenant Schneed? Who is the Imperial prisoner in the brig. Who claims that they know something about the murder. However, there was some clear doubt cast upon that by Kelly and Aurelius. It's like, they've been in the brig. You have heard about Abraxas, who is the chef.
Abraxas. It's cool. That is a cool fucking name. Abraxas.
It is a Moncal chef. Let me see. Lobaka is the anesthesiologist. And then head nurse.
The head nurse is Nurse Sharia, who is a Twi'lek.
She is not. That may have been something I just forgot to do, but she is now human.
Human
Yes. there you
head
go.
nurse.
And then Dr. Phobos, because that was y'all met her during the one that I did not have notes. Dr. Phobos.
Phobos. He's, I assume, the lead physician or something.
She's the
to that effect.
surgeon she's the doctor/surgeon that shared office with Dr. Xander, who's the dead guy.
So Dr. Phobos and Dr. Xander shared a room.
Yeah, they shared an office space together. They're
Shared an office.
Mhm. Miss Cho is the assistant. And then
Is the assistant to the victim?
yes,
Okay.
you've heard this name as the redhead that was seen in all the pictures. Or not all the pictures.
Casati?
Yeah. Castrobana.
And is that just a name you've heard, or is that who's that?
There is a red-headed woman that they found in some pictures
Gotcha.
in the office. They have not come across because they may be in a shuttle, they may be on the ground.
Trapana, Miss Cho, Phobos, Aurelius. I can't fucking spell Aurelius, that's fine. So, Chef Abraxas.
And then let me check one more thing.
Is anyone in the cleaning crew named?
No, you did not get that name. And you did not gotten those either. Yes.
That's a lot of pages you just flipped through while saying we don't have them.
Well, I'm looking through some of the things that I have. I came up with the name when I created them, rather than putting them on a nice list at the front, which was stupid on my part.
I've been there. I've been there.
Let me just put it this way. Generally, I don't write down things when I DM. I wrote things down for this, so I'm still figuring out my own shit. Which I know, yes, gives a lot of faith in what we're doing here. But, you all decide that you're heading towards the galley to go talk to Abraxas. Abraxas is the Monkal that is, in charge of feeding the ship. And he is, in some ways, the one that is bridging a lot of the gaps, because he feeds surgeons and soldiers alike. And when you head towards the galley, You can pretty easily figure out where it is as soon as you get a little bit closer, because there's a lot of more people starting to mill around and heading either to or from the galley, hanging out in the hallways, soldiers on breaks, nurses on breaks, even a couple of injured in wheelchairs or with canes or walkers, some of them still kind of with packs of Bacta and other healing equipment that's just with them, but they are being encouraged to get up and move. And the smell of almost a like market full of food hits you 3 hallways away. And as you enter into the kind of table side, eating area side of the galley, there's a lot of people here and a lot of noise. And you look around, you see the mix of people that you would expect on a frigate like this. There are soldiers, there are doctors, there are nurses, there's general security, there's even people that you assume to either be traders that are bringing in items or people that are manning the shuttles just around. And as you kind of make your way through, tell me what y'all are doing specifically. What you're wanting. This is the largest, calmest group of people that you guys have encountered on the ship thus far. They're not rushing around, they're not rushing you out. They barely even seem to notice all of you when you come in.
So, where specifically in the rooms on the Paramount we're in the, you said the galley?
Mm-hmm. Don't take the map that's on there as like,
oh, okay.
It is more of like, this is the ship in general that you're looking at to give you a sense of like size and scale.
Okay.
If you're wanting to
and
like
the body
see
was
what
found in Loading Bay.
Yeah, if you're wanting to just like judge distance, you can ask me. Just don't use the map as like, this is what it is.
My first thought is so I want to you can tell me if I'm getting too into the weeds on this, but in my head I would want to place the pathway to know what rooms and areas Xander would have to walk through to get from wherever his original location was, like his office, the last place he was seen alive, and where he would have to go to get to the loading bay that he was found dead in. Because if he doesn't have to pass through, for example, like the bridge or the briefing room, then that changes like who that might impact who potential people could be. Maybe I might be overthinking it, but
it's a good question. So the general kind of shape of the ship is correct. I will place a couple of things, draw a couple of things here. So essentially the long center section is on this ship, primarily so that part of the ship can split off if absolutely needed. To try and save people. So like freehand this. And then turn this so that I don't move it all over the place. Not there. There you go. Y'all's ship is here. Because there's a docking tube that was reached out for your ship because it's a little too big to actually go into a bay for this ship. Your loading bays, you'd have like 2 here-ish, and then 1 here. And Xander was found in one of the ones here. Your
So
officer's quarter, your bridge for this ship, let me see here, is a little bit lower, so it's somewhere around here. Because it has to be a little bit closer to the gun.
okay.
Your doctor's quarters are closer to the hospital portion. So, like, this would be the doctor's quarters and offices. Because you can essentially imagine this big section on the right is the hospital. This portion where the bridge is and down is going to be military. The portion on the other end is going to be military.
Okay.
The galley would be kind of like here-ish. To kind of be in the middle somewhat. And then the surgical theater is roughly here. So Xander had to go through some fairly populated and trafficked areas to get to the loading bay. Some of them more populated than others, and some of them a little bit more common for Xander to be moving through, but since this entire top portion is essentially medical, it would be assumed that Xander would be all over the place normally in that area anyway. It would be a little bit stranger if he was down past the bridge near the gun or over towards what's labeled as like the hyperspace end of this ship.
Okay. So he's going to spend his time in this quadrant-ish.
Yeah.
In fact, probably mostly up here.
Yes.
So, okay. Let's just get to the chef first. That's all I want to know as we're moving through the ship. There's a million other questions I would have to ask later.
Anybody else wants to ask anything, do anything as you're moving through the cafeteria? Silence. That's good. So you start moving through. I want anybody who thinks that they would be kind of tuned into what their surroundings a little bit more, roll me perception.
How many purples?
It will be 2 purples.
Dos per palos.
Nailed
Woo!
Okay. So, as you guys are walking through, I'm just kind of looking at those around you. Kane, you tune into a conversation that's between a couple of soldiers that's very loud and seemingly joking. But you tune into it immediately because you hear Dr. Xander's name. And something along the lines of Dr. Xander getting into a very heated argument in the cafeteria the week before with another soldier about something. and it ending up in the soldier actually throwing coffee at Dr. Xander and storming out. And the conversation continues on with somebody else throwing in their 2 cents about 2 nurses getting into a fight 2 or 3 days ago and ending up throwing some food at each other. You realize it's just essentially this gossiping about craziness happening in the cafeteria when people are stressed out. Marcy, kind of hanging towards the back of the group and looking around, you have flown with some interesting people in your time. I've heard a lot of different alien species talking, and you're a little bit fluent in various languages. And you hear a couple of Rhodians talking to each other. And it takes you a minute, and you're not quite sure everything that they're saying, but it seems to be some gossip about Lobaka meeting with some weird-looking people last time they were in port, and wondering if she was okay or not. But you don't get very many more details because you're not quite sure of all of the words that they're using.
All right. Here, I need to write this down. My brain is not working.
That's fine.
Okay. Could you repeat what you said?
You hear a couple of Rhodians talking about Lobaka, the anesthesiologist. Seeming to be like meeting with or talking to some kind of rough-looking people last time the ship was in port. And they seem a little concerned. Not panicked, just a little bit like, that's a little weird.
Okay.
And you all continue towards the actual kitchen galley area. And at first, there looks like there's going to be a couple people try to stop you as you head towards the actual door that's separating the eating area from the kitchen. But as soon as they see the passes hanging from your neck or belt or wherever you chose to put it, they kind of step away, realizing, oh, okay, these are the captain's people. And as you push your way into the galley, you see that it is somehow simultaneously in perfect shining order and absolute chaos at the exact same time. This ship has been put under some shit. And you've seen it, everything's being kept clean, but you have seen little bits and pieces of very distinct wear and tear. Like seeing the worn steps in some of the hallways where people just walk back and forth and back and forth. And the metal has not been replaced. Some of the lighting that is maybe a few watts lower than they're really supposed to be. The bulbs dying or being replaced by things that they maybe shouldn't be. But just as long as it's keeping the ship running. However, this galley seems to be impeccable. The counters are clean and crisp. The floor is spotless. You see that where the trays and dishes are being washed, they are being put in very specific, perfect order, all lined up. However, the about 9-10 people running around this galley, cooking and prepping food and washing the dishes and just handling everything, are just swirling around. They barely seem to notice you guys as you push the door open and step into one of the very few spaces that they are not actively moving through. And at the very center of it, you see a, for his species, pretty tall, gray-skinned Moncal that is moving back and forth between two different counters, seemingly preparing some sort of stew of something that smells very, very spicy and very clearly has large chunks of meat going into it as he's carving very expertly this large side of some animal. You don't quite know what it is, but you know that as soon as he is done with it, the bones that are left are absolutely spotless. He's getting every single scrap. And as those of you in the front kind of push a little bit closer and interfere with one of the like sous chef's paths, and there's this like little like bump into one of you where they're not paying attention. There's just a little fucking noise from them. Abraxas's head snaps around and spots all of you. Doesn't even pause in chopping what looks like maybe a radish of some sort. Very huge, massive radish. And they just kind of lift their chin up. And there's a very clear, quizzical expression. And then and who are you? What are all of you doing in my kitchen?
It's Chef Abraxas, right? Pleased to meet you. My name's Iffy Fell. I'm a representative for the Hapen delegation at the Senate. We're here to, ask a couple questions. We heard you're really good at what you do, and looking at you, man, I ain't ever seen bones that clean.
And there's a little smirk and a not quite as well hidden like little puff out of his chest, and he just kind of like tosses a bone over his shoulder into what looks like another giant pot that he's probably planning on making like broth with later, and continues grabbing another set of food to chop into this massive pot next to him. And he just nods. Well, you gotta keep all these people fed.
Sure ain't easy work. My family had a personal chef too, but it was feeding a family with attendance of like 50. I'm sure you've got to feed, what, a couple thousand?
And he nods quickly and looks towards there's a kind of window. God damn it, Piper. A window out to the line where they're actually dishing out all the food, and he kind of looks out at the crowd that's there. Well, depends on where we are, depends on when we are, but generally yes, and some of these people eat 5 times a day, so...
That ain't surprising. I tell you, ever since I left the consortium, I've been seeing tons of new people, tons of new types. It's been a real head spinner. But look, Abraxas, let me level with you. You heard what's been going on the ship lately?
And there's just like a little bit of confusion. No, I mean, then nothing's happened on the planet, right? There's not been any alarms. He kind of like looks around. You see another couple of like sous chefs' heads like pop up and like shake their heads.
No alarms, no alarms. No, nothing's gone on down on the planet or nothing like that. But there has been a situation.
Huh. Well, I have not heard any. I've been here since, and he kind of like looks towards a corner where there's a little bit of a clock. Says, well, shit. 16 hours? Looks back at you.
Do Moncal need to sleep after 16 hours?
He just like smirks and like kind of rolls up a sleeve, and it looks very much like caffeine patches.
Jesus.
Chefs everywhere. They never change.
Yes, Iris, you can make a perception check at 3 purple. Unless you're wanting to push into in amongst the sous chefs, which you'll roll something else. But I think if you're just looking from where you're standing, it'll be perception with 3 purple.
Okay.
What were you saying, Kira?
Oh, I wasn't saying anything. But I can go on or we can wait for the roll. I'm fine either way.
So, as you're kind of looking around from where you're standing, it's not hard for you to kind of figure out the order of the kitchen. There's very distinct stations that have been set up to deal with different things, and you realize as you kind of like look at it a little bit longer that it's probably to try and help manage the varying dietary needs of the people on the ship, where things that certain species should not eat don't touch other things. Where Abraxas is standing and working seems to be the largest station for the kind of primary base diet that most species can eat, with the sous chefs handling baking of things and washing of things, both silverware, dishes, that type of stuff, and the washing of produce. And then a couple of a little bit more specialized stations. As you're kind of scanning over the room, what exactly are you looking for?
Obviously missing knives here or missing equipment, if possible, because I know like some places will have the a knife box kind of thing for stuff that's clean.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of seeing if anything like that.
You see that there are essentially 3 primary knife blocks near various stations. Looking at them and then trying to judge with what the chefs are actually using, most of them look like they have almost all of the knives there, and you can look towards the dishwashing station and it looks like there's like maybe 4 or 5 knives over there that would probably account for everything. You're not 100% certain without going closer to actually properly inspect each block, like count.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like most of all the knives, at the very least, are in the kitchen somewhere.
And I can add, overly curious or suspicious of us being here. It's like, I assume everyone's working, so.
Everybody's continued working even as Abraxas was talking until the like, oh god, is there something going on the planet? And then you had like about half the heads pop up, like little like meerkats popping up out of the ground, like, what's going on? Where are the alarms? Are we in trouble? And to varying degrees, they either seem to have been like snapped out of hyperfixation and they're trying to like get back on the roll, still listening in on the conversation, or like slowly going back. The ones that seem perhaps the most nervous are the ones closest to Abraxas, but for all of his very careful cutting of like the food and handling of the food, you also feel like it might be because when he spins and when he talks, he does gesture with the knife. So there's a little bit of a like, okay, we have to at least keep our peripheral on Abraxas to keep ourselves from getting cut.
So he said he was here for 16 hours, and the murder happened roughly an hour before we had arrived?
Yes, so
Yeah.
it's been somewhere between 2 and 3 hours at this point.
Okay. And
he
how
still
many
does not seem
other...
to be at all aware that there's any type of murder, even, because he's been tucked away in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. And how many other people, like chefs or cooks, are in here?
There's about, say, 9 of them in total.
Just have Kane look over at them and say, and you're all able to vouch for his being here for such a long stint, right?
And the few that are still paying attention to you, they kind of look at each other, and you hear a little bit of murmuring in a couple of different languages back and forth and nodding. And the one closest to you that's actually behind the, like, kind of island area that they're working on turns back. I mean, yeah, I've been here for at least 2 hours, and she's been here for, like, seven now, because you're going on, like, food soon. Points towards another person in the kitchen, and you see her nodding. So they have not all been here for 16 hours, but there doesn't seem to be any, like, surprise or any, yeah, he's not been here for that long type of talk.
Okay. So there have been other people here who have been there for a long enough amount of time, and they all seem pretty convinced, like, okay, yeah, 16 hours, that seems about right. Nobody's like, the fuck, 16 hours?
No. From
Okay.
the caffeine patches on the arm and the kind of, like, weird sense of pride that Abraxas seemed to have in his eyes as he showed the patches, it doesn't take much of a stretch to be like, yeah, he actually thinks it's fun and cool that he's able to do this. Little twisted workaholic.
Hey, he is very crazy. That's fine. Anyway, that...
Has anyone who's most recent to get on their shifts? Like, who's the new crew coming in, essentially?
I mean, back here, it'll probably be, if I didn't get his name right. Probably be Ari over there, and points to the same one that was like, I've been here for 2 hours.
Mm. Do you guys have, like, a check-in system, or is just kind of come in when you come in?
Are you asking that to Abraxas?
Yeah.
You have a clock in? Like a little
Yeah,
punch card or something?
Abraxas kind of motions to, around, kind of tucked to the side of the door that you came through, where all your backs would essentially be towards it, because you looked immediately towards the kitchen. There is a little computer on the wall that is essentially a punch in, punch out system.
Mind if I take a look at that?
And Abraxas, see, he kind of finally slows in his cooking for a moment, kind of steps back, and you see him stretch and shift. He's like, what? Okay, let's circle back around. What are you doing in my kitchen?
Well, like I said, we're here on account of some unpleasant business. I don't know if you're.
There's been a murder and we're investigating.
Oh my god. Facepalm.
Same. Like, in
I'm tired of
synchronous
just-
facepalm.
I'm tired of just dancing around words. Alexa says as she steps up.
Oh, we gotta. It's about maintaining control over the flow of information.
There's a, like, moment of, like, all work stops in the kitchen for 2 seconds. And they all kind of like look at each other, and you hear the murmuring of murder. Fucking murder? On this ship? Are we sure it's this ship? And Abraxas actually fully turns to face y'all at this point. There's a murder, and you thought you needed to come here. You think there's a murderer here? And he says that just loud enough that you now see the people that are dishing out the food on the other side of the window kind of like turn and pause.
Now, I
Your
didn't.
voice down.
We never said we thought there was a murder here. We're just asking some questions. We're asking everybody. We just got back from talking to the head nurse. We spoke to Dr. Phobos earlier. We've spoken to Captain Aurelius. We're just, checking all our boxes. Now, that being said, Chef, if I were you, I'd want to know where all the knives in this joint are right now.
Tana's keeping her eye on anyone in particular that may seem overly sus.
So that punch clock thing, is it technical? Or is it like
Yes.
a... Okay. I'll go check that out.
That'll be a computers at 3 if you're wanting to try and like hack it in any way. Because when you go up to it, you do see that it's something that a code has to be put in to like log you into your account to then punch in for yourself.
Yes, I will do.
And Abraxas just kind of like looks around and looks down at like the knife in his hand and slowly puts it on the cutting board and then turns back to the window, fully facing the kitchen, and just like claps his hands really loud. It's like, all right, knives down. And you just hear the various clanking of knives being put very clearly onto cutting boards from various people in the kitchen. And Abraxas starts walking through, counting very clearly, and you actually counting out loud at various points of like, yeah, that's 4, 5, 6. That's the chef's knife, and where's it's over there, and starts looking. All right, so you get into the computer. What are you looking for, Vialexa?
So is this just when people get to work, or does it record when people leave for any purposes?
It is 100. It looks like they essentially clock in at the start of their shift and clock out at the end of the shift.
Okay, so it doesn't record people leaving the kitchen.
No.
Yeah, it's not a perfect system, because you could clock in and then walk out, but still be dinged as in.
Yeah, just looking for any irregularities in the system. Then
you do see that just from a quick glance, that there's essentially a staggered system where most people seem to be clocked in for about anywhere between 7 and 9 hours in total. It doesn't look like they take like an hour off for lunch or anything like that. They're just there. And they seem to be coming in every hour and a half to 2 hours of somebody swapping in and swapping out. Abraxas is clocked in, and you do see that it is actually closer to 16 and a half hours that he has been clocked in. And the most recent one was Aerie, that is clocked in for about 2 hours. As far as irregularities, all of it seems to be pretty routine.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, well, as far as that goes, it's fine. Is there like a camera system in here that I can try and punch into?
You look around, you do see a camera in the galley area. However, you do know that the camera system is controlled at the brig.
Did all of the cameras go down at the exact same time? Because I do know that it did cut off, but
at least from what you overheard and kind of saw looking over the shoulder of the people on the bridge, it was only the cargo bay that the cameras cut in and out. The cargo bay and kind of like the hallway next to it, because there are not cameras on every single hallway of the ship.
Okay. This is still absolutely valuable for me to get into, then I would like to get into that.
You will have to go back to the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody make a note of that so I don't forget.
Yeah,
Put that on the list.
You can look around and see cameras on the ship and see where they might be positioned or what they're looking at, but there's not going to be any nodes just around the ship for you to access for that.
Understandable.
And were you trying to do something, Joe? Because you started to talk.
Yes, I want to kind of, because Abraxas is walking around the kitchen counting knives. I want to trot up along beside him and ask about that fight I heard a rumor about.
Oh, the one between Xander and this soldier?
Yeah, one between Xander and some random soldier, because they had it in the kitchen or near to the kitchen.
They were in the cafeteria, essentially.
In the cafeteria, so he might have heard.
As continuing my
something.
art here. I don't know if my mouse will work. Like, this is like the cafeteria section. Back here would be like the galley. Then there's like a serving line. And then all of this is like tables.
Yeah, so this is like the area where the fight largely took place.
And you guys were just like coming in through an entrance and had to go all the way like here, where there's doors.
Okay.
So you how do you want to ask that? What specifically are you wanting to ask?
Very, very plainly, just go up and say, Mr. Abraxas, if have you happened to have heard anything about a argument that broke out in the kitchen between I believe is Dr. Xander and a soldier who I don't have the name of?
You Abraxas kind of like pauses in counting a knife block and kind of looks at you with this tilted head and blink. And there's this like a long pause where you're not quite sure if he's just confused or if he's thinking. I mean, yeah, I think yeah, they wasted some of our best coffee. We actually just got that shipment in that morning. They just fucking threw it on the ground. It was, oh god. Was that Zabrak? Who was he? And he actually puts down the knives that he is holding, kind of goes up on his toes a little bit to like see a little bit better over the like hood of this island area, looking towards the window. And he kind of whistles, and you see one of the people that's serving the food on the line turn their head and like come back to the window and look in. And it's a fairly young looking Togruta that just kind of looks a little concerned, a little confused as to why she's kind of being called over by the chef. And you remember the fight, Xander and the Zabrak. Well, who was it? And there's a blank look on her face for a second, and then this like slow dawning. Oh, that was Genty. Gentii. Thank you. Yeah, that was I think Corporal, yeah. Genty D.
Corporal Genty. Interesting. And does this Corporal Genty have a history of yelling at people, or does Dr. Xander have a history of yelling at people? Is that a thing that regularly occurred between one of the?
And you just see Abraxas kind of like shrug. I mean, not in my cafeteria usually, not in my kitchen, but Dr. Xander was always in the hospital for the most part, so I'm not in charge of him. Not in charge of the soldiers either. I'm in charge of this. He just kind of like gestures around the kitchen and cafeteria. Yeah, and the Chigruta, who still kind of seems to be now trying to eavesdrop a little bit, not immediately going back to work, kind of sets her chin on the serving area. Well, I mean, Xander was always stressed. Didn't usually yell. Genty's had it rough for a couple months, I think.
Okay, so Xander is obviously stressed. He's a doctor. This is a medical frigate that tracks. And Genty, being a soldier, must have suffered some loss of some kind. Possibly. Yes?
You see a shrug from both of them.
He just kind of like open his mouth to comment about it and just close his mouth and be like, that makes sense. Right. So he'll turn around and kind of move back towards Iffy and fill Iffy in and say, I heard a rumor that there was a fight in the cafeteria between the doctor and a Corporal Genty, but I don't think that's going to lead anywhere. It seems to be that it might be a dead end, but what would help to know further is if we could find Genty.
Well, sure, we probably can, but let's let the man count his knives first.
As Kane walked away, Abraxas started to go back to his spot, seemed to remember, oh, I was doing something, and go back to recounting what he was already counting. And continues and doesn't seem to be put off by anything as he goes through the knife blocks and heads over to kind of where the newly, more recently washed things are. And you see him count the ones there and then pause and then recount the ones and then kind of start looking around. And then you see him reach into the like tub of soapy water that is running and kind of feel around for a second and then pull out another knife from the bottom. In Kane and Kana and, well, actually, everybody except for maybe Thisme and Marcy. When you see it, you're immediately, that's weird. It looks like a chef's knife handle where the actual blade has been snapped off about an inch or so from the actual handle, and there has been a very quick, kind of shoddy soldering of a medical knife.
He pulls that out of the sink.
Yes.
And
he like pulls it out, like holds it for a second, sees that it's weird. He even immediately clocks it and immediately kind of like drops it to where he's holding it by 2 fingers instead of a whole hand, like a proper knife. And just kind of like lifts it into the air a little bit.
I would assume that it wasn't supposed to be like this. He points to the little like metal seam where the cut had been made or break had been.
And he slowly shakes his head. I mean, We joke about stealing some of the knives from the doctors, because they always have nice ones up there, but this is not supposed to be in my kitchen.
So, when you say this is not supposed to be in your kitchen, this is some form of medical knife that has been haphazardly attached to a kitchen handle / kitchen knife stub.
And he nods slightly. And she looks at it really close again. And then kind of turns around and heads towards like the nearest knife block. And looks at the knife and looks at the block. And then very carefully places the knife in the block, and you realize it was a way of hiding the knife. Because it looks exactly like all the other knives around it.
Ah.
So, Abraxas, a quick question for you. Did you get any new folks in recently?
And he kind of furrows his brow, looks around. Well, everybody here right now has been here for at least 8 months, 9 months. He kind of slowly shakes his head. I mean, all of my staff has been here for most of it.
Your staff. Now, you've been here. You've been a real soldier yourself, working 16 hours. But do you got a relief chef? Is there another shift that comes in? Maybe another head chef?
He just kind of shakes his head again. Like, I set up all the recipes and all of the items and make sure it's all ready before I head off to sleep, so I usually don't have any issues, because it's usually in the middle of the night where there's a slightly smaller crowd, but, he, like, takes the knife back out of the knife block and just, like, holds it out towards the group in general, clearly not wanting it now. It's, like, uncomfortable, like, still holding it with, like, 2 fingers.
If he will gesture for someone else to take it.
Kane will take it. Kane is wearing gloves. For the record. He has his black gloves on.
Another thing that just popped into my head. Was there anybody who left in about maybe 3 hours ago? Maybe 4?
The murmur kind of goes across the kitchen again. And all the sous chefs and Abraxas kind of talking to each other quietly, trying to, like, splice together a time, essentially. Because as kitchens are, time seems to blend together in the chaos. And there was there's a pause as one of the other sous chefs mentions that there was apparently a pretty serious code incident that happened in the hospital about roughly 3-4 hours-ish ago. Because somebody had burst into the galley and a lot of nurses had gone running back out of the galley, and it had caused a bit of a distraction. Even in the kitchen where everybody's kind of looking. And Abraxas just nods in agreement with that and looks around and says, and all of my people get about 10-minute, 15-minute breaks every 2 to 3 hours, so most all of us have stepped away for a breather
This
in
would
that
be a bit
time.
more than a breather.
Question. Above table question. Did we check if the body was moved to the loading bay or killed in the loading bay?
I did specifically ask that, yeah.
It was
And
killed
it was
there.
killed. Okay, killed in the loading bay and not moved.
Yes. The body, the inspection of the body, as far as what they asked and what they uncovered, was that the body was killed there. It was killed by a normal knife, not a vibro knife, which is weird because most weapons that you use to attack people in Star Wars are vibro. Only cooking and surgery usually are the ones that have non-vibro knives. There was some mucus left on the body that suggested a amphibious species of some sort. And the wound itself seemed to be as if somebody had stabbed Xander and he was up against the wall or was already on the floor from the angle and the pressure and everything.
If he will pull out her holopad, zoom in, extreme zoom in, so as to not, show anything awful. Now, Abraxas, one last thing. I gotta admit, there was another reason we thought we might swing by and ask you if you knew anything about this. How's your stomach? You got a solid stomach? Chefs always have solid stomachs.
You get this, at first, slightly offended look, and then a, puffed out, I have a solid stomach, I'm good, and then the brain starts to catch up with the pride. Oh, there's a reason you're asking this. Oh no.
I'm a hard motherfucker, and wait, you're not gonna show me a body, are you?
And so, there's now a little bit of concern, but a slow nod.
If he will close up on the goop in particular here, and show it to him. So we're given to understand that this sort of thing is related to aquatic species. Maybe Moncal, maybe not. I don't know well enough to say. I think you're the first Moncal I've really met. But we thought maybe you might know something about it.
And he kind of looks at it, and there's confusion, and then another slow dawning of brain catching up of oh shit, okay. That's some amphibious slime on what looks to be a dead body.
Zoomed in,
but it doesn't take much of a stretch.
Yes.
And he kind of nods. I mean, a couple of us on the ship would produce that, yes. And he actually kind of walks over to the sink again, and you realize as he is walking that his skin has seemed to slowly get a film on it, and you see him actually scrape the slime off into the sink as see?
Gross.
And then wash his hands, and it seems to use some type of special soap that kind of dries out his skin for the moment. He's again kind of shows ta-da. There's, depending on where people are, it's not uncommon for us to need to wash our hands and arms and faces even frequently to prevent cross-contamination on the ship. And depending on where They are. I think I've even heard of some of the nurses that are from similar species. It goes into buckets sometimes, because that's all they have.
Buckets. Huh. Oh, of the other nurses, anybody come to mind in particular here? Maybe we should be looking at. Uh, anybody's got some kind of quarrel with Santa?
And
Or you, for that matter.
need to double check the names of these species really fast.
Because we're looking at a suspicious kitchen knife and some similar type of skin fluid. If it's collectible in a bucket, who's to say that it could not have been swiped if it was in a bucket and deposited somewhere else to potentially set up a frame?
You gotta admit, the mind does jump here. Not that I think you did it, but it sure does seem like somebody wanted us to think so.
So if you happen to know of any particularly deep grudges held against you, that'd be helpful.
And you see confusion and concern on Abraxas's face. And you hear, again, whispering from all of the chefs. And a couple of them have seemed to started to try and get back to cooking, but most of them seem to be just like, okay, we have a show now. And they're just listening and paying attention to what's going on. And Braxis just kind of like counts on his fingers. Well, there's me, and there's another Moncal that's a soldier. And there would be, I think there's a Corin nurse. If he didn't get off at last port, but I think he's still here. And there
The
is
Moncal soldier is not Genti, is it?
no. That
Okay.
was
That's a
very
Zabrak.
yeah, that's a Zabrak.
Ah, right. Thank you.
And then there's a pause, and I think we recently picked up another nurse that's a Kakaradon, but they haven't shown up very often, so I don't know if that was a permanent nurse or was just here on a rotation for a moment. That's all the ones that would produce a moisturizing slime like this. I mean, I've had enough people get angry about what I cook, but generally they're not anybody's too mad at me as far as I'm aware. I mean, I feed everybody all the time. They get what they want eventually. I suppose I did get in a little bit of a fight with Miss Cho recently, but that was just over something that she wanted to include in the food order that I forgot.
Something that she wanted to include in the food order. Now, what was that?
And he just kind of like sighs slightly, like, for our longer serving people on the ship, sometimes they miss an item from home or a particular treat from a different planet that we haven't been able to get to. And they ask me, and I keep a list. And when I have to order new rations and new crates of fruit and meat and vegetable, if we're close enough to where it is, or I get get word that it might be easy, I sometimes will throw some of those on there so that they can have a handful of them, and then I can put it on, serve it, because they are probably not the only one missing that food.
Now, that wouldn't have happened to have been awful, would it? Some kind of, intestine stuff, organs.
Hmm. Well, it was a liver from some animals that you usually only find on some of the farming planets in the Outer Rim.
And we're not near the Outer Rim right now, are we?
No.
Yeah.
So she was upset that you didn't put it in the meal?
Well, she thought I was going to be able to get it the last time we were moving through. About, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago now. And when I made the order, we weren't close enough to any planet that was actually going to be able to get us.
And when did this argument happen?
About, I guess 8 days ago now. What's today's date? He looks over to one of the sous chefs who snaps up really fast, not expecting to be talked to, and they stumble over. First say the wrong day, and then nope, it's this date, and and then Abraxas nods. 9 days.
9 days. Turn to Iffy and whisper, "Have you talked to Miss Cho yet?"
Looking like that's our next stop, ain't it?
That is a no. Okay. I'd like to say it now, just so we're clear. I don't know if this is the case, but do we know if Xander had any particularly bad food allergies of some kind that others would not be aware of?
You're talking to Abraxas now?
No, I'm talking to Iffy.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know the guy. We could ask Chef here if anybody would know it'd be him. Hey, Abraxas, did the doc have any food allergies?
Doc, I'm assuming Xander, because that's the one you keep talking about. Not allergies. He had things that he didn't like to eat, but you eat what we have here. You don't like what's currently on the bar, you come back in a few hours and there's something new.
Right. Thank you. I'm gonna do do one of those silent gestures to Iffy and just kind of it'd be more subtle than this, but you know the cut it out sort of gesture at the neck where you kind of move your hand back and forth. Just do one of those all right, I think we're done.
Yeah. If he will smirk. Well, Abraxas, you've been real helpful. I'm sorry for the trouble, and I know this must be terribly stressful, but believe me when I say I'm looking forward to trying your food. I've heard nothing but great things about it, and I'll have you know I'm a bit of a gourmand myself.
And there's this kind of blink, whiplash of topic changing, and then there's this a slow nod at first, and then a little bit quicker, and he claps his hands together a couple of times, and as he does that, you see all the sous chefs jump, and the ones that had been kind of leaning against counters, arms crossed, listening in, even those that had been pretending chopping the same carrot for the past 5 minutes, immediately start to scramble to actually start doing things, and Abraxas starts heading back towards his station, and just kind of gives a little, slightly now nervous smile. Yes. We are going to be having some bantha stew here shortly, so if you guys are hungry, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Give it an about hour. Yes, it was got. He starts. He's seeming now getting distracted, realizing they are now like 20 minutes behind schedule, and starts moving faster even than you saw him when you walked in. But he does kind of like look sidelong at all of you. Can anything else I can do for you?
Yeah, I was gonna ask above table if anyone wanted to ask anything, because I didn't mean to just totally shut us out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to ask, so if anybody else has any questions.
No.
I think y'all took care of it.
Yeah.
Then the last thing Kane would say is he would very like whisper just so Abraxas and none of the other chefs could hear. Like if he or the team hears, that's fine. But to make sure that none of the other chefs are listening particularly to this, Kane will whisper, and by the way, you run a decently tight ship here. Make sure that you crack down on any rumor spreading. We're trying to prevent a bit of a panic or leak in information, if you don't mind.
It's just like giant fisheye blink, and then a realization and looking towards the window where roll me roll me a vigilance really fast with 2 purple.
Vigi with 2 perp.
Vigi pudding.
I don't have good vigilance. I don't have good vigilance at all. Oh boy, here we go. Oh.
Doing
You
worse.
can't quite hear it, but as like you follow his gaze out the window to the line, you see essentially all of the people standing on the line serving whispering to each other.
And that's what we were trying to avoid.
And then Abraxas just kind of looks back at you and is like, I'll try.
Control control just the chefs. That's all we want you to be responsible for. Don't worry about them. We can take care of them.
He looks over his shoulder at the rest of the chefs, and a couple of them have like peeked up again, kind of looking and like curious. And Abraxas looks back at you and just like shakes his head. Well, there's only one that's due off anytime soon, so as long as you finish whatever you're doing the next 2 hours, they're stuck here.
Nodding. How many people are on the other side of the glass? Is it like a line of like 20 people?
There's about 7 people that are dishing out the food.
Okay. Oh, so the people who are like on the other side of the glass, are not the ones whispering.
Yeah, so it's the people that are like out here that are actually like dishing out the food to bowls and plates.
Gotcha.
The lunch ladies.
Is anybody here particularly good at convincing someone to not do something?
Convincing people.
I think that's paid intimidation.
You know, I don't know much about this party, but I feel like half of the people here specialize in that.
You would think that the party we have would specialize in talking to people, but here we are.
I can name 3 characters off the top of my head.
I'm gonna go get control of the cameras. I'll be on comms.
All right, so 2 characters.
Yeah, if you can do
Available.
it. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
can do it, or if anybody else wants to as well, that's also okay.
I will point out the lunch ladies to Iffy and just to let her know, like, make sure that they don't blab, because they're going to be the ones who are talking to a bunch of people coming in and out and in and out.
All right, I will go and try to convince these lunch ladies to at least hold the gossip for 2 hours. I will offer intergalactic Senate gossip as a reward if they can shut it for that long.
So you step out of the
politics.
you step out of the door from the galley to like this where the actual like line is, and you see just this line of varying from pretty young to actually pretty old beings of various species that are, as they are moving back and forth and dishing out food to people as they pass, whispering to first the person on their right and then wandering over to the person on their left. And there's a chain going on. And you step out and they don't notice you for a second, and then the one closest to you steps a little too close that they get the the goosebumps of, oh, somebody's there. And they look at you, and there's like a very distinct, oh! And then you see down the line all these faces turn your direction and like lean, so they're seeing around each other until you see all of their faces at the same time looking at you.
Ladies. It's nice to meet all of you. I don't know if you overheard, but I suspect we got some people with real keen ears over here. Am I right about that?
There's a couple of either bashful or knowing smirks, but nobody says anything.
Well, here's the deal. My name is Iphigenia Fell. Everybody calls me Iffy. I'm here with the Hapen Consortium. We're doing a little business, which means I'd like to do a little business with you ladies. Sound good?
You see and hear the murmur go. The one closest to you is still not listening to the ones behind her, but is looking at you very curiously.
What we've got right now is a bit of a sensitive situation, and believe me, nobody knows better how much value there is in gossip during a time like this. I'm from Hapes, you don't gotta tell me twice. But I really need to keep just a little bit of a lid on this for just a couple more hours. 1 or 2, maybe. And if you guys can manage to not talk about this, or even better than that, if you can just find some stuff to make up and throw a bunch of people off, then when I get back here, I'll have my lunch with you ladies, and you can ask me whatever you like about Coruscant politics. I will answer for 2 hours. How's that sound?
There is a much more intense and focused whispering back and forth, including the one closest to you who turns to the one beside her. And it takes a minute, but there's very clearly interest. I will let you roll. You know what? This is a little bit of a negotiation.
Negotiation, you say?
With
Would you say
3 purple, and you are offering gossip a blue.
Okay, so 3 purple and a blue.
Mm.
Let me.
Mechanically, this makes sense. In character, Kane is like, you're offering like gossip relating to political figures? I feel like that's important, Iffy. God. But he's not going to
Meanwhile,
say
Via
anything.
Alexa was the exact opposite. You're offering politics? Who wants to talk about politics?
All right. I gotta ask. Do these lunch ladies count as a government institution?
Are they unionized?
It is a military ship.
Will you let me downgrade it?
Sure.
Oh boy. All right, here we go. I appreciate it. Yeah? All right.
So there's interest growing, and then finally they all look at you and all the faces turn your direction again. And the one closest to you just nods slightly. I think we can do that.
Pleasure doing business with you.
And she nods and then turns back to the one on the other side of her. And you see again another focused round of whispering. And the little bits and pieces that you hear as you turn away from them, it sounds like them coming up with some of the most insane and bullshit theories.
I appreciate that. I love this for them. I love this chance to just come up with the most ridiculous gossip.
Oh no.
After bidding these ladies adieu, I will rejoin the party.
You do not know what you have unleashed upon this ship now.
Oh my god, did you guys hear? A Sith Lord came and tore up the ship. You didn't see it?
I just know relationships are about to end over this.
That's fine.
Okay. So, we've been going at it for a minute. You guys have got some stuff. Does anybody need a break right now? Are we good to keep going?
I'm good. I might get water if I'm not going to talk in a minute.
Anybody else?
I'm good.
I'm good either way.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, we'll keep going. So it sounds like Vilexa decided to split the party
Yep.
and head to the bridge. What is everybody else doing? So I know where I'm dividing my attention.
Okay. So I figure Miss Cho is probably a good place to stop next. Do we want to do like a two-way split and do half goes to Miss Cho and then half reviews the tapes?
I probably only need like one person to stay as
Alright.
melee guard. The rest of you can.
That sounds good then.
I like to review tapes.
Okay.
Marcy and Vialexa review tapes.
And one melee. One of you melees come with me.
Oh.
I need
no.
guardian. Come on, Kane.
But I'm
You said-
guarding Iffy.
Hana has linked her arms with Iffy.
See that Vialexa grabs him by the wrist, drags him along.
It's just two
Don't worry.
heel lines as he is dragged.
Don't worry. I'll take care of the senator.
You can see your girlfriend again in a couple minutes.
So Vilexa, Kane, and Marcy, Iffy, Thesme, and Kana. Alright.
Mm-hmm.
So do need to know where group number 2 is going.
We'll go to see Miss Cho, I think. What do you guys think?
Thumbs up.
E.
Okay. So we'll shift to Vialexa first. You make your way back down towards the bridge. And you can tell very clearly that word has spread through most all of the ranking officers at this point and seems to be starting to spread through the military end of things at the very least. Because as you get closer and closer to the bridge, it is more and more like a beehive just swarming with people. And none of them seem super happy. And as you step back onto the bridge, you see kind of at the center of the chaos, the was it Corporal Lieutenant Kelly? Forget which one it was. And Captain Aurelius.
Sergeant Kelly.
Sergeant Kelly, there we go. Sergeant Kelly and Captain Aurelius. Kind of at the center of things, answering questions and seeming to dispatch people to do various things. As you little bits and pieces that you overhear, some of it seems to be about trying to keep the ship in order right now and keep things as contained as it can be, which is getting harder and harder and harder to do, it seems. And it also sounds like there is something happening planet-side that is causing more than a few issues.
Knock, knock.
Oh.
Aurelius just looks towards you very slowly, and with that very carefully blank expression that his kind keeps, he just studies you for a second, and just very calmly. And is there an update?
I was hoping to get a hold of the cameras. Could I have them, pretty please?
It's for the purpose of doing a little thorough investigative work.
Oh, you're more than welcome to look at some of the cameras if you just define your area.
Particularly in the galley, I believe.
The galley, anywhere where there might be a claimed alibi, because I'm going to cross-check it with the cameras, and then I'm going
That's
to...
very vague, and I don't know how to
It
give that
is.
to you.
We don't have a location for everybody's supposed
We don't have
alibi
a...
thus far.
Yeah. I can have Kane run up and ask you for certain locations when we get updates for that. But for now, we need the galley, the cafeteria, the kitchen.
Basically, the entire galley, right?
Pretty much. You don't have to give me like the super secure areas right now because I don't need those, but I do need at least those public domains.
And
if nothing else, I'm going to create a net and watch people leave versus entering around the time of the camera fucking up and try that as well.
Okay. Are you trying to add something too, Joe? You sound like you're interjecting.
I wanted to double check. There are no cameras in the loading dock.
There were, however, they found a pattern that slipped through the cracks of every 3 to 4 weeks. The loading bay cameras seem to go out for about 2 or 3 hours.
Gotcha.
And it was just something that was small enough and minor enough as far as they were concerned for a ship that is distracted and as chaotic as this one is all the time, that it just slipped through the cracks because of how far between the blinks were. So there is video footage of the loading bay before, and there's video footage of the dead body. But during the time period of the murder, there is no video footage. But you ask for the galley in the kitchen and everything, and Aurelius just nods slightly and looks towards the sergeant, and sergeant kind of looks around really quick and then actually escorts all of you back out of the bridge and down the hallway a little bit into what looks like a conference room that does have a computer set up in it. And he sits down, and you see him punching in a couple of codes and maneuvering through the computer. And it takes a moment, but it looks like somebody on the bridge has connected you specifically to this computer the video footage of the galley for what looks like probably about the last 72 hours. And current feed.
I love it when people just give me things. I normally have to take them. She begins like cracking her fingers. Kane's wearing like a blindfold, right?
I guess. Why? Wait.
Well, like, didn't you have one in your character art?
No.
No.
No. He has like a headband, but
okay.
no, he has a shawl thing that he did use at one point
Okay.
as a mouth guard, not a headband.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So, engineer, ex-Jedi, I'm gonna need your help for something.
Just raises an eyebrow. Okay, what could we help with?
Well, we're going to take a look around the time of who leaves certain rooms versus how many people enter rooms, and we're going to use that to cross-check any stragglers that don't show up again. Should narrow it down a little bit.
I think that makes sense to me. Get a list of everyone who walked into that area, at least in the day.
Yep. At least around the time of the incident, if nothing else. Versus how many people walk into other rooms and narrow it down from there. While you guys do that, I'm going to begin checking the captain's alibi. See if he's been there the whole time. At that, she taps her like comms, like, "Comms good? Can you guys hear me? Bubblegum, can you hear my silken voice?"
Oh, Kane is like rubbing his temple at the name Bubblegum.
There is an eye roll. If we do have comms, there is an eye roll that you can hear. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. When you guys get their alibis, please tell me.
I'll be first to know.
There's just a little hot mess the comps cut.
All right.
Okay, and then I will do exactly that.
Of going and talking to the captain again?
No, I'm checking the kitchen camera for if he was there the whole 16 hours.
Oh, versus... the chef. You said the captain's alibi?
I
was like,
yeah. I'm sorry. I'm also going to look for whoever put that specific, like, funky knife thing in the thing as well, because that might be important. And I tasked the other two with creating, like, a mental net of who left versus who entered other rooms, sort of thing.
Alright. So, with the feeds that you have, it looks like you have essentially 4 cameras in total. One that is positioned in the galley that you realize very, very quickly is positioned in such a way that it is essentially over the doorway looking into the galley, so you don't see anybody that comes in and out of the door itself and doesn't venture into the galley.
What kind of useless?
You see one that is positioned looking out along the lunch line. You can see a tiny portion of the kitchen through the window. And then you see 2 more cameras that are on the cafeteria, kind of positioned catty corner to each other, opposite each other. So they're covering most of the cafeteria. There's not really any super blind spots in the cafeteria itself. But you also don't have a very good detailed vision of anything that might happen in the center of the cafeteria because they are both, against the walls in the corners.
Mm-hmm.
But you just see the people. So let me look here. Here. I will say Marcy and Kane. You two can roll either vigilance or perception at 3 purple. And because you are trying to look at something that is very, very specific and very small, Piper, you will also have vigilance or perception at 3 purple and a black.
I mean, I was never going to succeed at that anyway.
So you said 3 purple for everyone, but 3 purple and a black
for me specifically.
Yeah.
I was never going to succeed at this, but
Well, you guys are getting some things.
I'm going to use a destiny point for this. This is important.
Okay.
And I know you've told me this 1,000 times, but what do I do with this?
That will downgrade it. So you should be able to build your pool, and I think there's a downgrade button.
Oh, there is. I never saw that until this exact moment in time. Okay.
That's the way I used to. I don't know, Kira, if you've just been building it, or if you've been using the downgrade button when you use it.
I mean, I'm not going to succeed anyway, but... Oh, well, no.
You get something.
I get something.
That's why, like, you don't always have to just think about success. There's usually something that comes. So, as all of you are examining these cameras and focusing on your various tasks, I want, as Vilexa would be the one controlling the computer, where do you start the film?
Can I like split screen it? So like half the screens on the stuff I want them to look at, half the stuff on what I want to?
Yes. However, I'm assuming for yours, you would be swapping between the kitchen and the lunch line, while they are swapping between the 2 cameras in the cafeteria. You have 2 boxes, but you'll have to swap between the 2 cameras themselves.
I guess for me, I'll start with watching the area for whoever put the knife into the thing. That's where I'll start it.
In the specific time period that you're looking at.
Yeah.
What is the specific time period?
Shortly after the murder of the guy.
Okay. So, let's see here. Marcy, as you are kind of watching the camera flop back and forth every minute or so between the 2 cameras that are in the cafeteria, in the actual like eating area, you see just a mass of people. It's like watching, like, remember those crowds, videos of the crowds of Black Friday that we used to get all the time? Yeah, it's like that, because you're talking lunchtime on a military vessel, a big military vessel. So there's a lot of people coming and going. Almost all the seats seem to be full. But you start kind of seeing some patterns arise. You see the groups that arrive together and sit together, and the groups that seem to find each other in the cafeteria and sit down together. And you see Sergeant Kelly coming in pretty soon after the start of the tape, with a couple of other military and security people, and sit down in a corner. Shortly after, you see a group of doctors with somebody that looks like Phobos. You can't quite tell because they're kind of hidden in the back of the group. But the doctors all come in, enter, seem to get their food, and settle at a table. And then, not too long after you see them come in and settle, you see a blue light in the ceiling of the cafeteria start flashing. And there's no audio on these particular cameras, largely because the noise of the galley in the cafeteria would just blow out any mics that would happen to be attached to these cameras. But you see the light, and you see almost all the heads kind of like lift and look towards the ceiling and pause as if listening to something. And then you see a very large section of the nurses and the doctors and the orderlies and the medical staff in the cafeteria get up at essentially the same time and hustle out. And you realize, okay, that was that code incident that Abraxas mentioned. Kane, you see this code incident, and you kind of watch a little bit more intently, and you see a very familiar, very tall figure. Well, actually, not familiar, but familiar by the description. I was like, yeah, you were not here to actually meet her. Of a Wookiee walking into the cafeteria and walking through the cafeteria and making her way up to the lunch line. And I will say, Piper, on your screen, you actually see Lobaka enter into the lunch line screen and actually go through the first set of doors and seem to be just like leaning against the wall in between the doors, talking to some of the lunch ladies at the end of the line.
Okay.
Are we able to like fast forward a little bit? Do that thing where we have it play on like double speed and just watch Lobaka's position? Because I want to see if she goes.
Yes, but let me
in.
finish what I was saying, because I've not even gotten to
Oh, yeah.
Piper's bit yet. Going down the line. You also see, shortly after Lobaka comes in and kind of disappears into like past the cameras that are in the cafeteria, you see what you very quickly assume to be the moment where the body has been discovered, because you see Sergeant Kelly actually re-enter into his, they'd already left at this point, re-enter into the cafeteria on a mission this time, grabbing people that are very clearly have the insignias of the security on the ship, like lean into their table, talk to them, and then walk very briskly out. And that is what you see, Kane. Vilexa. For the first section beyond, you kind of see the flashing blue light and like the pause on the lunch line and in the kitchen of the coding incident. And then very quickly things seem to go back to the kind of standard. And then you see Lobaka come and just talk. And shortly after, you see what looks to be a group of about 3 people try to kind of hurry through the doors between the lunch line and the galley. You see Ari, the chef, and it's roughly about that time period where he's like, okay, it's about 2 hours ago that he came into work. And kind of like helping rush tie his apron on. You see a young Twi'lek, very pale blue Twi'lek girl, that's kind of pushing and shoving him a little bit, and then you see immediately behind her another kind of young, early 20s. All of them seem to be early mid 20s. Looks to be human, following along behind. That's kind of laughing and seems to be they seem to all know each other and be like rushing one of them off to work. However, as they burst through the first set of doors, not realizing Lobaka's back there, the door smacks into Lobaka, and there's just a shuffle of chaos first at the end of the lunch line, and then seems like a couple of them enter into the kitchen because you do see Ari pop out from under the kitchen camera and head towards the station. And there's a like pause of like work from those closest to it. Abraxas looks at it and seems a little annoyed, but then immediately goes back to work. And seemingly this is something that happens frequently, or this small scuffle or chaos is something he is not overly concerned about. And Ari immediately goes to this exact same station that you saw him cooking at, without pause.
So he like somehow like tripped or something? Or got stuck getting through the door?
No. So like you see the 2 small X's on the cafeteria? Yeah. In between the X's, Lobaka was leaning against the wall, so Lobaka got smacked in the face as these 3 just go bum rushing the door, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was what looks to be a fight, or an argument of some sort, between Lobaka and these 3, but Ari just broke off and immediately was like, I gotta go to work.
Okay, so Ari like stumbled away from that.
And because of the chaos, you see these lunch ladies shove all of them back out now. Like, okay, visiting time is over. And as they are being shoved out, they bump into another person. And this is when something clicks for you, Vilexa. Mm-hmm. It's a busboy with dishes in a box that he carries, kind of twirls around these people and carries into the kitchen and puts directly into the sink. And you realize
rat bastard.
This is how the knife probably got into the sink. It was in one of the bus boy boxes somewhere.
Violetta kind of pauses, and she's like, "Ha! We got a clue."
Oh, can we see any discerning characteristics of this busboy?
It just looks like not super thrilled. What is that race? Kira, the Twi'leks, but with the horns.
Oh,
Hornlicks.
Devornians?
Hornlocks? No, I don't know off the. Wait, it's not. You're not thinking of Iktochi, right? The big ones.
No.
I'm okay with calling them the horny boy. That's fine.
Yeah, we can call him the horny boy for
The
now.
horny boy.
Dang ol' horny men.
Hornlicks. Hornlicks.
Hornlex. Twihorns.
It looks like a not super thrilled one of that race. And then as you make that connection and kind of look towards the cafeteria, you see that there's about 4 busboy dishwashers moving around.
So you can tell me if this is asking a question that's a bit deeper than it needs to be again.
Chagrian.
Sure, yeah. But the busboys, do they go and retrieve a bucket of dishes that is out and about, or do they go and carry it around table to table and pick up what's on a table?
Combinations. Seems largely that they go and grab a bucket that's kind of stationed near some trash cans and compactors and things. And then they, on their way to the kitchen, they go back and sweep through anything that may have been left. Because there are moments where dishes just kind of get left in the cafeteria. Not many, but a few.
Are each of them assigned a set series of tables? Because that's how a lot of people do it.
Yeah, it does seem to be generally that they kind of have each a corner that they're working in. Of course, kind of going over the lines when there's a particularly big mess, or like when the nurses all left at the same time, they kind of all shuffled, trying to get their stuff cleaned up because none of the nurses like took their food away.
I guess the other unfortunate thing is, if we're trying to gauge whether or not a busboy did it and put the knife in the bucket they were bussing, that's one thing. But it seems to me that it would also be possible for someone to just put the knife on a table or like on a tray or under something.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I thought it'd be a
Yeah.
good idea to figure out what tables that they each serve. And
Yeah.
take
Yeah,
a look
because
at it like that. Yeah.
I was thinking in my head like it's probably not a busboy. So because of that very reason.
Yeah.
And that I was also going to say like it doesn't rule out Lobaka.
It does
Because
not, no.
she could have dropped the knife on her way in or planted it.
I mean, did I see that? I doubt I saw it.
You couldn't tell.
Yeah, it's the problem now is that the camera facing out this way is just gonna see a fucking theater of people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we
we
would
need to
see
talk to
the
that
killer.
busboy.
What'd you say, Pepper?
We need to talk to that busboy.
What are the odds that they remember that though?
All we have to do is ask them what tables that they serve or that they take care of. It lowers it down to a couple tables, lowers that down to a couple people.
Fair enough. Or yeah, like what area those tables in. Okay. Kane is gonna like how far is the jog from the area we're in now, like the not the brig. Oh my god, what's it
Bridge.
called? Bridge. Thank you. The bridge to the galley.
If you jog it, 8-ish minutes, 9-ish minutes.
Okay.
You
Then
could always just ask a security person to go get him.
Kane would rather do it himself. So Kane will like give Vilexa and Marcy a pat on each shoulder, like with opposite with each of his hands, and just be like, okay, I'm gonna run down there and see if I can find that bus boy or person.
Yeah, feel free to ask me if you need anything. Oh, bring me back a tomato juice, please.
Okay.
Thank
Poking
you.
his head out, like poking his head back in the door, like, fucking runs.
Okay. So we will leave the video crew for the moment. So they have uncovered a clue, and they are in the process of trying to chase it down. And you will move it back over to EotE, Kana, and Thesme. And y'all are trying to hunt down Miss Cho, correct?
Yep, that's what we're on.
Okay. So just double checking here, making sure that I've get everything correct in my notes. The 3 that I said went past Lobaka was Airy, and then what were the descriptors I gave of the other 2? Make sure I didn't fuck anything up.
Small blue Twi'lek girl.
And then a human.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you laughing at, Amy?
I just find it very funny that one of the people was a let me see, a young pale blue Twi'lek girl, and the other one was just a human.
Well, the issue with the human in Star Wars is there's like a lot of types of human. And so unless you're like up close and personal, sometimes it's really hard to figure out what type of human they are.
That's true. I'm just like, maybe a red-headed human, or it's just funny, the like different amount of description. I just found it funny.
The disparity of walking into a room and seeing 1 or 2 things that do not have a trunk on their face, and it's just like, yeah, a human and a Twi'lek.
Yeah.
What's the human look like? Well, it's not a Twi'lek.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you all make your way back down towards the doctor's offices, essentially. And start kind of asking around for Miss Cho because you're not quite sure where she is. And you get various answers of like, yeah, I saw her just a second ago. I have back and forth. It takes you guys a minute to narrow your way down and kind of pass by the same set of offices and kind of like file rooms and server rooms like 3 or 4 times as you're being pointed one direction and then another until you finally pop your head into what looks to be a what you would assume to be almost a secretary type room where there's about a half dozen different computer stations lined up. And at each of them, you see a person sitting, seeming to be working on paperwork and tests and getting essentially sorting all of the information that would be needed for a hospital ship like this. And about essentially you have like 4 people on one side and another 4 stations on another side, but there's only 2 people sitting on the opposite side. And back in the very back corner, you see a young blue Twi'lek girl that matches the description that you were given as you were asking around for Miss Cho. So I'm just going to go ahead and give that to y'all, because y'all never asked about where is Miss Cho, what does she look like. And as you all enter, the ones closest to the door kind of like perk up and look at you, and like almost with the startled of like, oh crap, the doctors are here. What do we have to do? And then they see you and they kind of pause, and the fact that they pause slowly garners the attention from the rest of the room until everybody's kind of looking at you very confused.
Hello, everybody. Seems word hasn't quite gotten around yet, which is probably for the best. My name's Iffy Fell. I'm here with the Haven Consortium doing a little business. I'm a representative in the Galactic Senate. I'm looking for Miss Cho.
And all of the heads turn towards the Twi'lek. And she just slowly raises a hand. That would be me.
It's nice to meet you. Although, terrible circumstances. I'm sorry for your loss.
And like her eyes get really big, and she kind of like looks around to everybody else. And you very quickly realize she has not said anything to them.
Maybe we can talk somewhere a little more secluded.
And she nods slightly and gets up, and you hear as she's passing one of the other people like, are you okay? And she just like gives this like nervous smile and nods really quickly and keeps moving, and steps outside with all of you and just looks towards the door and then holds up a hand and walks you down further, back down to Phobos and Xander's office, and steps inside. And very quickly closes the door after you all are inside.
Thank you for keeping a lid on things.
Well, I mean,
even if it wasn't your intention.
The captain and the sergeant were very, very firm about it needing to be a secret, so preferred not to get kicked off the ship anytime soon.
I'm sure you won't be. The people around here don't seem that cold-hearted. Especially given the circumstances, I'd expect you can stay around for at least a little bit. Have you done a lot of this assistant work?
She kind of nods slightly. I mean, I've been on this ship for a year and a half now. So, I mean, I was working at some of the hospitals in the Corps for a while beforehand, but it seems like we needed more help here.
So you came here on principle, huh?
She kind of nods slightly. I have family that are across the lines at this point, so anything to try and make it to where they can get back off planet. I'm not
We
really
hope
going to
it-
be one picking up a blaster, unfortunately.
I can sympathize. I don't like shooting either, unless I have to. It's just it always leaves your hands. They just smell terribly afterward too, don't they?
There's just this like nervous smile and like kind of nod of like, I don't quite know what you're meaning, but the sentiment is agreed upon.
So, you know why we're here. I don't want to drag you through the mud any further, nor do I want to make this any harder for you than it's gotta be, but we do got some questions for you.
She nods slightly. Well, I mean, I imagine you're probably a little mad because the sergeant was not super happy that I had to get the doctor's pass key, but I had to get into his account so that I could get all of his things rescheduled and put on everybody else's. There's a lot of doctors really mad at me right now.
Well, I ain't mad at you for it, but I do want to know what. You heard about the body first, then? From the cleaning crew?
I heard about it from Sergeant Kelly because, I mean, we're kind of in charge of knowing where our doctors are to make sure they're staying on schedule. And so he wanted to know where Xander was supposed to be, and he was supposed to be meeting you. Because I'm assuming you were the ambassador that he had marked on his schedule.
Well, I am indeed. I'm not quite used to being called ambassador yet. It's a nice sound, though. But before that, where was he?
He was had a short period to work on some paperwork immediately before, and then was in surgery for about 2 hours before that.
Let me think. And where were you exactly? You said you're supposed to be keeping an eye on your doctors. Were you on a lunch break?
She kind of flushes a little bit and nods. I was with my boyfriends.
Your boyfriends?
Plural?
And the blush gets a little bit darker.
We do indeed stand.
I want to ask if it was at the same time or different times.
Yeah, you just hear over the calls of violence at the same time. Damn, girl.
Back on Hapes, we understand how we're meant to treat our men. And they're far better behaved over there. They understand what life is like, really. I can't imagine putting up with two of them at once outside the consortium. How do you do it? You must have the patience of a saint.
She just there's a tiny smile. They're sweet. They're sweet.
Well, these sweet fellas got names.
Ari and Max.
Wait a second, Ari, does he work in the kitchen?
She nods.
I think we just saw him. Kana, do you remember seeing him?
Yeah. His shift started recently, right?
What do you think? He looks sweet?
I don't think that's my place to judge, but I guess.
These May, you think he looks sweet?
You hear over the comms, is this really relevant?
No, it's incredibly relevant.
It's very relevant.
You see her getting like first embarrassed, and then she was kind of amused by your statement, and now she's like kind of confused.
Well, speaking of the kitchen, I heard there was a bit of a commotion earlier. You know anything about some sort of code situation?
She nods. When there's some particularly large shuttles that have to come in, or shuttles with people that need to really be rushed to the front of the line, there are certain codes that are kind of used to get as many hands on deck as possible, I guess would be a way to put it. We had a shuttle come in with, well, most of them didn't make it.
I'm sorry to hear that. But in a place like this, I suppose that's their best shot. So, were you in the kitchens at the time when that happened?
And she shakes her head. I was trying to get Erie to work, and I'm not exactly a nurse myself, so me rushing off at a code just gets in the way.
Makes sense, makes sense. But, so the doctor, would you say he had anybody he was, a bit leery of recently? Any enemies? He did seem pretty nervous on the phone. Hold it.
She just kind of tilts her head slightly, and you see it's like look of concentration. I mean, there was this soldier that was blaming him for not saving his brother. That has kind of fought him a couple of times. Like not actually like hit him or anything, just arguing. He I know he was looking into something. I don't know what exactly, but he seemed to be kind of nervous about it. I figured he was just auditing and, I don't know, found somebody was skimming an extra couple of painkillers off the top of something. And he just wasn't happy about what he found. I mean, most people liked him. He was nice enough and has been on the ship for almost the entire time it's been active. At least it feels like that. I guess maybe he might have been fighting with Koss, but he didn't really tell me about those things, so I don't know.
Koss, I've heard that name a couple times lately. Who was she to him?
They were dating and have been kind of dating on and off for 6 years now. She's one of the ones in charge of the shuttles.
Huh. The shuttles. I'm just out of character, wondering if she would know about the loophole, but I probably can't ask this cinnamon bun here about it. Let's see. Now you said he was audited and stuff. Does that happen often?
I mean, he's not really done it before. I mean, sometimes some of the more senior surgeons and doctors will take a double check. Like they get worried about something and they double check. And to be fair, there's been occasions where there's a nurse or a soldier that has gotten their hands on something, usually not anything worth killing over.
But it's my understanding you do a fair bit of the ordering of supplies around here. It's you, Abraxas, and head nurse, yeah?
She nods. I kind of help with some of, I guess you could call it the secretarial side of things. The head nurse orders a lot of the medical supplies, and Abraxas handles most of what comes in for the food and what the soldiers need beyond weapons, and I kind of get everything that's extra.
Now that's quite a lot of stuff that falls in extra.
Just kind of shrugs, doesn't seem to like really know what to say about that. Well, I mean, most of the time it's broken chairs.
You're ordering broken chairs? Is there a
Well,
discount on them?
I mean, replacing broken chairs.
Now, who's the one who actually checks the shipments when they come in? Do you handle that?
Well, if I have a particularly big shipment, I will go and find my crates. They're usually labeled so we know which crates we need to go into. I or one of the others, and she kind of gestures vaguely down the hallway towards the secretarial room that you were in. Me or one of the others will check ours, or sometimes some of the people on the bridge will help with that because we order some things for them too. I think Abraxas goes through all of his stuff on his own or with one of his assistant chefs. I don't know what the nurses do, really.
And I was talking to Abraxas recently. He mentioned you two had a dispute about an order placed recently. Liver, maybe some kidneys, intestines.
She her eyes get a little bit big at the like mention of the liver, and then as you continue, her nose scrunches. I wanted some bantha liver. I come from Ord Mantell, and so I'm kind of used to, I guess some people might call it poor man's food. And I just had a craving for it, and I know some of the others really had a craving for it, and I was hoping to cook some of it for Ari to see if maybe he'd like it, and I don't know, I just got mad.
Oh, we all get frustrated, and believe me, in my old line of business, there were a lot of shipments I missed out on. So, do you order this liver often?
And she shakes her head. Not. I mean, there's others that like it, but there's not a whole bunch of people that like to eat it, so it's too much of a hassle.
Hmm. But now, banthas, they're land dwelling creatures, right? Were you expecting the liver to be here before this? Because Abraxas mentioned when you ordered it, you were nowhere near a place where he could have gotten it.
I thought that we were close enough to, because that was when we were moving ships. Thought we were close enough to get it from last place we had to stop and refuel.
Hmm. Can I try to roll a vigilance or something here?
Yes, you can roll a vigilance at 3 purple.
3 purple. 3 purple.
Could I maybe do a little force stuff?
Sure, roll your force die.
Let's see.
It's 1 rank. Look at you, Iffy, putting a single rank in vigilance. Alright. Perfectly
Damn it.
balanced.
Somehow the single rank balanced that out. You can choose to take fucking, why do I always forget the word?
Strain to flip it?
I am confused. It doesn't show results for Iffy's roll.
That's
Oh, yeah,
because if
'cause-
you look at the symbols, because this is like the
Mhm.
symbols cancel each other out, so that she actually rolled a perfectly balanced roll. So you see the little explosion, that's a success, and the triangle is a failure. And they cancel each other out.
Okay.
And then the little wing symbols are advantages, and the little other things, circle things, are disadvantages or threats. And
Okay.
they cancel each other
Oh, I
out.
see. So it was one
As all
success,
things
one
should be.
failure, 3 advantages, 3 threats.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I was wondering, like, wait, that looks different.
Yeah. So if you like scroll back up, you can like look and like see all of the different ways that they're like subtracting from each other.
Yeah.
And so since hers was perfectly balanced, she essentially rolled a 0. I mean, she doesn't find anything out, but she also doesn't trigger anything bad.
Okay.
We're just vibe checking each other here.
Yeah.
Thank
As all
you.
things should be.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want
No,
to.
no,
Like,
no, no.
That's part of the reason why you're like, you can be here in Peanut Gallery and watch so that you can learn some of this and hit the ground running.
Absorb. Consume.
Okay.
I will use the die, the dark side, to get some current thoughts.
So, you are using the mind one, correct? Just checking.
Yeah, the sense thoughts.
Okay. So, as you focus in on Miss Cho, she seems to be very stressed. And you get these like distinct impression of like, oh God, what are we doing? What am I doing? And you get these kind of like flashes of her trying to grab something out of Dr. Xander's pocket, and kind of hearing the sergeant over her shoulder, and just the kind of stomach churning feeling like she's going to be sick of being that close to somebody that she knew, and you get the very distinct impression genuinely liked or respected, and then being dead.
Liked or respected the fact that he's gone.
And so you're getting this like, she's upset, and she is trying very valiantly to just kind of keep her shit together right now.
Okay.
Keep her shit together from celebrating.
I
So
forget
about
what
the
you were
bantha
trying to
living.
vibe check. Was it just...
Huh?
I forget what you were trying to vibe check.
Oh, I was trying to vibe check to see if she was hiding anything.
You are aware enough of people that you can see that she is putting on a face, but you're not 100% sure if it's putting on a face lying to you, putting on a face like, I have to be professional right now. You're not quite sure kind of where it is. She is not being fully forthcoming, fully truthful, but both of you, both through force and through just knowing people, she doesn't seem malicious at the moment either.
So, without the bantha living, what'd you guys end up doing for your date?
She just... There's a little defeated kind of sigh. Harry cooked a steak. But Harry always cooks, and so it just... I don't know, I guess I'll have to try and find it when I actually can get off the ship again next time.
Do you have one of those nice little, they got those rooms these days? You know, the ones where they have moonlight and stuff. You can program the walls to show whatever you like. Did you do one of those? Or are you just sitting in the galley?
Well, I mean, there's not any rooms like that on this ship, and I don't think any of us could really afford rooms like that off the ship.
So it was the galley, huh?
We went to Max's room. He has a little bit more room. His roommate got shipped off a couple months ago, so nobody's gotten put back into the room yet, so works out.
Oh, I see. He's a soldier?
She nods.
Well, I hope he wasn't the one that Vilex and Thisme gave the business to earlier.
Oh.
She just
Actually,
like...
it was just easy.
There's just like a little furrow brow of like concern and confusion, not knowing what you're saying, but also not pretty sure she doesn't like what you're saying.
It's a joke. Don't worry.
Don't worry, he'll be fine.
Overcomes, and it was
You'll
not me.
be
It was just me.
fine.
I said he'll be fine.
Oh, I thought you were just straight up like, don't worry, you'll get over it.
No. All right. So is there anything that you guys want to double check with her? Above table.
Does she know anyone of the aquatic species? I'd say.
Oh, yes.
maybe?
We should follow up on that. I will ask her if she knows any of the people that Abraxas mentioned, the Moncal soldier, the Corin nurse, or the new nurse.
She just like tilts her head slightly. Well, I know Abraxas, kind of. The Corin nurse. They've been here for a little bit longer than me. His name is Casey. And I don't know, he's usually working. Well, I guess there's not really time on the ship, but I guess closest thing you can call to night shifts. The Moncal soldier. There's a Moncal soldier in, I think under Ginty? Either Ginty or...
Spec.
The other one that replaced him. I don't know. Yeah, they're... yes, I know of him. I've seen him. I think he's planet side right now, though. The Karkadon, they just came in a couple months ago. They're actually not a nurse, they're an orderly. They're kind of scary. But then Karkadons usually are. At least the ones I've met. And he's... I guess if you want to talk to him, he's, should be somewhere around the ER. I think it's his shift. He's not under my roster to keep schedule for.
You know, speaking of schedules and doctors, it seems like Xander and Dr. Phobos are pretty tight.
She kind of like glances back over her shoulder at Dr. Phobos' desk and nods a little bit. They've known each other for a long time.
Would you say they get along pretty good? Any changes in that recently?
She just kind of like tilts her head slightly. I mean, generally they get along pretty good. Sometimes they disagree about how to treat a patient they might share, but that's usually not an issue. They went to same schools, so it's usually they have the same opinion on things. I mean, sometimes if Cass and Xander started fighting, sometimes Phobos seemed to get caught in the middle. But I think she generally tried to stay out of it.
Did she know Casa too?
And she nods.
They all go to school together? Just from being on the ship here?
Just from being on the ship, I don't know that Xander knew Koss before the ship.
And did Phobos and Cos get along okay otherwise?
There's a little bit of uncomfortable on her face. They respected one another.
You sound like a diplomat.
Is that a bad thing?
Oh, I'm a diplomat, so take that as you will.
Confusion.
You just hear Kane sigh very loudly.
Aren't you glad you're with me?
It's like I never left her.
Now, if we wanted to talk to Casa too, where would she be? I imagine she's pretty heartbroken over this whole situation too, huh?
I don't know that anybody's told her.
Oh.
She's handling the landing pad on the planet right now.
Oh, so she's planet side.
She nods.
Oof. Well, I can't imagine what she'll be going through soon.
Do you know when the last time she was up here on the ship? Give or take?
Cho kind of looks towards a clock, and you can see she's doing math in her head. She probably left about 5 hours ago. 5-6 hours. They try to do rotations about every 24, 32 hours or so, depending on what's going on for whoever's in charge of the landing pad. And she just started hers.
I don't have any more questions, I think. Is there anything that anybody else
Did
wants
you
to
get
know?
her exact location still?
She said she was in Max's room.
Max.
And he's a
Okay.
soldier, so he would be in the barracks somewhere.
Okay.
Soldiers' quarters.
Okay.
I'm trying to dissuade myself from asking about that one soldier who was in an argument. I think that's a red herring, man.
Hey, we can follow up on it if you like.
I wanna ask, like, hey, do you know if you know Max, if he knows this dude? Is this dude an asshole? Come on, tell me. You can tell me. We're cool.
Is that
I
your
mean-
iffy impression?
A little. It's a work in progress. I haven't heard iffy in a while.
That's fair. That's fair. Iris, were you gonna say something there?
Oh, I was saying, like, you know, a sibling or a relative dying under a doctor's care kind of makes, well, good reason to be angry.
Yeah, it's a pretty good cause.
I don't think it's a reason to kill, though, because doctors can only do so much, I feel.
Depends.
I am gonna ask security guy for barrack camera.
All right. I will then ask what she knows about Army Barracks guy, Ginty.
She just kind of like blinks, and there's a little bit of a furrowed brow of concentration. I mean, I've not heard a whole lot about him. He's been on the ship for a while. Him and his brother came in about 2 years ago, I think, a little before I was here. And they've been on the ship pretty much since then. They're actually, at least they were, ground troops. There's always a small unit that we have to help establish and protect the landing pads. They got his brother got caught in some pretty bad crossfire a couple months ago and passed on the table. And Ginty, that's when I started hearing his name more. He didn't take it well. Before that, I'd never heard his name really, so I can only assume he was decent.
Now, you said he blamed Xander for it. Is there a particular reason he thought so, or was it just because he died on the table?
She shrugs a little bit. Not really sure. Never actually been there for any of the times they argued. Just heard about it happening in passing. I think he, for some reason, thought that Xander didn't try with his brother. Didn't actually do anything to save him, but Dr. Xander always did. I just always took it as him just not grieving well.
Well, everybody's got their own ways of dealing with it, and unfortunately, some people they look for outlet.
And she nods.
But speak in the morning. We should leave you to taking care of yours in whatever way you see fit. We do thank you for your time here, and if we have any more updates, we'll let you know.
She nods again. If you need anything, I am on shift for another 4 hours or so you'll know where to find me.
Oh, poor thing. Try and get some rest after that, though, you hear?
She nods.
Between you and me, I might have a Sabak tournament going by then, so keep an ear out. You play Sabak, right?
She smiles slightly. Yes, a little bit.
A little bit. I can already tell. This one here's a card shock.
There's a tiny laugh. Still
That's how
not completely comfortable, but there is a tiny laugh.
That's how you ended up with two fellas, right? You shocked them.
And then there's like
over the comms, she did something. I don't think it was sharks.
God's sake.
a hand over her face, and like you see the dark blue on the cheeks again.
Would you leave this poor girl alone?
There we go. That's a good note to leave on. Thank you again.
Oh, Kane is like forever mortified.
see, you came, you took your break immediately after these two came in. You are now seeing what I have been dealing with for the past several sessions.
You talk as if we're that bad, okay? First off.
It's just like it's fun because Kane is such a stick in the mud, and he's like please stop talking about the girl's love life. She's just young, and you're like coming off as like a parent who's trying to be so cool, and it's just embarrassing her.
What? No, I'm encouraging her.
No, not
Work
not
the
you,
hustle,
Iffy.
girl. Okay. I was gonna be like, girl, work the hustle. I don't give a shit.
That in itself is also like supportive parent who's like, yeah, no, get it, and it's just like, oh god, oh mom, don't tell me to get it.
It's encouraging mom versus encouraging and someone who views themselves as the cool aunt.
Someone who views themselves as the cool aunt. Reading Iffy for filth out here. She just doesn't understand why you would date two men. I think that's her main issue here. She's like, two partners, sure, fine, I get it. Two men.
Both of them? Really? You need more than one? You need one in the first place?
Two men, power to you, but like, yikes. Why would you? Am I right? Can't live with them.
Can't live without them. I'll teach you how. I've got a seminar. You just sign up. It's 200 credits.
There's a whole bunch of jokes I can make, and I'm not saying any of them. You're welcome. But I just want you to know that I could say them.
Proud of you.
I'm going to take this as the sign that we have spiraled for the night. And
Yes.
Quick check on her alibi. Quick check on her alibi.
So you...
She was with her boyfriends.
I know, but I'm saying I'm going to check that shit out. I'm going to request...
No, that was me remembering what her alibi was.
She was with her boyfriend in the barracks.
So when you ask for the barracks, they give you the hallway. There is no cameras in the individual rooms. And
but if we go to like right around the time of the murder, we should see her go in.
Go in. We should see her go in. Yes.
Well, we saw her with Ari in the other footage too.
Mm-hmm. So you do see, kind of doing the math in your head of her leaving a room with Ari about 10-15 minutes before the timestamp that she is in the cafeteria.
Okay, so she's not cleared yet. She could have done it.
God, dude, have we cleared any suspect?
We've cleared the chef.
The chef is pretty clear.
Yeah, you're right. We know the chef didn't do it.
It could have been a 2-person job. So she's not cleared.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to think.
Could be everyone.
Except the chef.
I'm still I'm still pretty sus of the head nurse personally.
I think we need to talk to Labaka again, especially.
Can we retroactively get the nurse's alibi so we don't have to go up and talk to her again?
The head nurse?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nurse Shania Twain.
Yeah, her.
Yeah, I'm having to go find her shit.
Yes,
not
just
on her
so we
page.
don't go all the way back there, go through all that hustle.
Hmm.
And we still have the prisoner to talk to.
That'll probably be next.
Yep.
Next time.
But I am gonna verify her thing too.
The head nurse would have told you that she was... Let's double check this. Yes. That essentially the one that she can very clearly prove is she was assisting Xander in the surgery earlier in the day and was cleaning up the surgery bay and prepping for another surgery for Dr. Phobos during the time of the murder.
Okay. And camera says
We shall find out next time. Make a note for
Next time
yourself.
on
The
Death Battle.
suspense.
Because I need to flip through a couple things and reread a couple things because I wasn't looking at the nurse because like, you're not going to talk at the nurse and notes are scattered.
Do
I
roll a
hope you
D100.
accounted for dumb player Z, because I am not sure that I'm helping at all.